I think that the Middle East is still trying to find out what the world is about and what its role in the Middle East is. Because this region has been repressed and occupied by the West for so long, I think that people here are still trying to find out whether globalization, in quotation marks, is actually another word for westernization. That we have to become westernized. That the people here have to feel that the internet, email, blogger pops, anything you like, is a Western concept, that they're having to fit into the West. And people here, having been ruled by the West and occupied by the West, militarily and politically, they don't necessarily want that. They want to establish their own life free from the idea that outside here there is some different form of life which forces them to say the things that they should say. They're trying to establish their own globalization, if you like, their own place in the Western world and their own place here in the Middle East. The idea that they have to adopt our mechanical ideas is something that's not close to them. It's not something they automatically want to do. Look, the Middle East is built on oil. If the major export of the Middle East was cauliflower or asparagus, the West would not be here. It's about oil. But over and above that, I think that the Arab world, the Muslim world in general, which includes, of course, Afghanistan and Iran in this region, they're more and more coming to understand the power, particularly financial power of China. You know, at least 10% of the imports of every Arab country comes from China. So that, in a sense, while the people of the Middle East are trying to work out what globalization means, they do understand that the world includes Russia and China and Japan, not just America and Europe. And this is something that people usually forget. This was part of the Ottoman Empire, this was the Turkish Empire. From the Turks, the land moved into the possession, if you like, of the British and the Americans. And to some extent the French. Now the land has moved into the possession of the Russians and the Chinese also. Everything moves around oil. The price of oil, currency which you pay for oil, which may soon change from the dollar to other currencies. And so in a sense, while the people of this region can only sell their property, oil, land, the future of the world is being decided here by those people who have to pay for oil and in what currency they have to pay for it. So I think what you've got really here is a situation in which you have foreign countries who have no real interest in the culture or the religion of this region, using oil as a bank account, using it as an account in which to put dollars, or rubles, or Chinese currency, or the yen. And this is something you have to start off from, that this is a market. It's not about war. War tends to be the currency in which we Westerners trade out here. But this place is about the price of oil and how you pay for it. When I first came to the Middle East, the expression of anti-Western power was always through nationalism. The Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the Popular Republic of Algeria. Everything was Western, everything was nationalist, everything was on a basis that it was about socialism and support from the Soviet Union. That has totally gone. What we have now is Islamism. People have turned from thinking that nationalism and socialism and the left will help them into believing that their own basic beliefs in life, which is religious, that this is going to be their support. So whereas when I arrived here 33 years ago, everybody was talking about the Soviet Union, Eastern Europe, the support for socialism. Now they talk about what Islam is going to do and what their religion can do for them. And there's a difference. You can abandon socialism and you can't abandon religion. And we Westerners have not yet realized that. When I was a small boy, the prime ministers and the presidents of the West had experienced war at first hand. Winston Churchill. Attlee was in the First World War. Anthony Eden was in the First World War. General de Gaulle. Even President John F. Kennedy had been in the Second World War as a soldier, as a seaman. So all these leaders had experienced death in war. They knew what it was like. And war is not, as television claims, about victory or defeat. Primarily it's about the total failure of the human spirit. And these leaders, Churchill, Eden, Kennedy, de Gaulle, they understood. But our leaders today, they've never been in a war. We journalists have been in wars, but our leaders have not been. So our leaders don't treat war as a failure of the human spirit, they treat it as a policy option. Blair, Bush, both liars. They treat it like, oh, we can't get what we want through politics, let's declare war and invade Iraq. Or we'll invade and drop bombs in Afghanistan. And so they deliver us into the doors of hell. And they know nothing about it, they know nothing about war, they have no knowledge or connection with it at all. That's why they hate journalists and why they hate soldiers, because we see the real thing. And they don't like us telling them what it's like. And this has been the big change in my lifetime, is that I see the worst things of mankind in wars. And those who make decisions for us, they don't see those things and they hate us for seeing them. And this is one of the major issues of our time, which we will not talk about, and we will not address, and which we should talk about. It applies the same in Spain, in Mexico, in America, wherever you are. They have not seen war. Unless you see war, you don't understand what you're going into. I don't believe in the war on terror. This is a rubbish expression invented by Bush and perpetrated by Fox TV and CNN and newspapers. There is no such thing as a war on terror. If there was a war on terror, we'd have a war against everyone who dropped bombs. From Dresden to the Luftwaffe bombing London to the bombing of South Lebanon by the Israelis to the bombing of Hama by the Syrians. What is terror? It's an expression. Terror, 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 terror. Excuse me. Excuse me. This is like a full stop. Terror, 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 terror. Let's abandon these stupid language. All we're talking about is people who want to find a reason to make you frightened enough to support the most disgusting acts ever, which is to invade a foreign country and bomb the people who live there. And this is merely an excuse, this word, terror, 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 terror. The Israelis use it, the Americans use it, the Arabs use it too. It is a disgusting word, it is generic, it has no meaning. There is no such thing as a war on terror because all war is terror, full stop. Look, by and large, when the West wants to act in the Middle East, it uses proxies. It talks about our friends in the region, our moderate Arab friends, like President Mubarak of Egypt, who's a dictator who has a secret police force which tortures people, or King Abdullah of Jordan, who is a dictator, who is no constitutional kingdom, who has secret policemen who torture people, or from time to time our Syrian friends, or then they become our enemies and then they become our friends again. This is a game where the West cannot rely upon its own dictators, it invades. Where it can rely upon them, it feeds the local dictators. It gives them money, it gives them food, it gives them weapons. Egypt is a classic example. You know, you've got to remember something. After the First World War, in which my father, who was much older than my mother, was a soldier, the victors, who were primarily the British and the French, they cut up Northern Ireland, Yugoslavia, and most of the Middle East here. And I've spent my entire career as a journalist watching the people in this region, in Beirut, in Sarajevo, in Belfast, in Baghdad. I've watched them burn because we didn't chop them up because we wanted them to have countries. We chopped them up so that we could control their countries. And this is what we did. And still we do it now, and they still need us. Whenever you find there's a problem in Lebanon, everyone says, please, England help us, France help us, America help us, Syria help us. Always these countries need the help of other people because they're not strong enough to stand on their own. And we, Westerners, we created it. Believe me, we did.
We're lit!
You know, I've been asking myself this question for so long, I'm not sure I know the answer. There's something about, you know, Lebanon strategically on the map. It's a very important place. You go between Palestine or Israel and Syria, or you go between, you go between the Mediterranean, Italy, Europe, and you go to Iraq or Iran, Persia. Always Lebanon is there. Always Lebanon is there. Lebanon is there. And, you know, the irony and the truth is that the Lebanese are very smart, intelligent people. They know what's going on. They understand. They understand that foreigners want to use them, and they understand how to use foreigners. But there's one big thing about Lebanon. Foreigners arrive here, and they think it is beautiful. They see the sea, the food, the women, the mountains. It's lovely. And they don't realize it, but Lebanon bites them like a mosquito, and they scratch the bite. And after a while, it becomes poisonous. And they say, I'm dying. Why am I dying in Lebanon? Lebanon loves me. Lebanon doesn't love you. You might love Lebanon, but it doesn't mean it loves you. It's a dangerous place. It's learned to fight with unorthodox means. It doesn't necessarily kill you, though sometimes it does, but it bites you. And what happens in Lebanon, economically, financially, militarily, is if you come here, you will lose, and Lebanon will win. Don't ask me how it does it, but it does. Lebanon will always win. I think the situation in the Middle East is this. We keep coming here, we Westerners, offering the people liberation, freedom, democracy. You know? We love democracy so much. And I think that the people of this region would like some of our democracy. They'd like some of our human rights from our supermarket shelves. You know, they'd like to have some of it. But most of all, when I talk to people here, what they want is a different kind of freedom. They want freedom from us. This we do not intend to give them. Always we come here with our horses and our swords and our Apache helicopters and our Abrams M1A1 tanks and our Bradley fighting armored vehicles. We say we come to free you. Even in 1917, the British went to Baghdad and occupied Iraq. This is more than 70, 80 years ago. And we said we are not coming here as conquerors but as liberators to free you from generations of tyranny. Oh, we wanted to give the Middle East.
We're lit!
There are now today, on my calculation, 22 times as many Western military personnel in the Muslim world than there were crusaders in the 12th century in the Muslim world. So when bin Laden says, you Westerners are crusaders, maybe we should believe him. We've got to leave militarily this region to give the people freedom from us. By all means, give these people doctors, medicine, agronomists, teaching, universities, but not soldiers. Take our soldiers out. Until we do that, there will not be peace here.
you answer it, but do you think with Obama anything will change here?
Okay, I'll answer you.
Yeah.
Nothing will change with Obama. Government, whether it be in Lebanon or Britain or Washington, it's not about good guys and bad guys. It's about power and the use of power. And Obama will change nothing, absolutely nothing. He will not change the state of Israel. He will not change the state of Palestine. He will not help Lebanon. He will not help the Middle East. It's exactly the same. It's not about nice guys. It is about power.
We're lit.
Look, every time I give a lecture, anywhere in the world, whether I'm in Yerevan in Armenia or Melbourne in Australia, or I'm in Oxford in England, or I'm in Denver, Colorado in the United States, there's always a guy I call the Raver. He stands up and he says, Robert Fisk, why don't you admit you know George W. Bush did 9/11? And my reply is always the same. George W. Bush messed up everything he did. He screwed it all up. You really think he's capable of 9/11? I don't think so. But there are questions about 9/11 which we don't have proper answers to. And because 9/11 changed the foreign policy of the Western world, made it brutal, cruel, vicious, torturous, we need to know everything about it, and we still don't know everything that happened on that day. That doesn't mean I think it was a conspiracy. It doesn't mean it was a Mossad conspiracy. It wasn't a CIA conspiracy. But we still don't know everything that happened on that day. And our journalists are not pushing to find that out. And that is a big mistake by my correspondent colleagues and by myself, I guess, because I have enough to cover here in Lebanon. I can't cover 9/11 as well.
We're lit.